The sky above Cedar Ridge, Texas, wore a dreamy hue of pink and gold, as the sun prepared to take its leave behind the distant hills. In that quiet twilight hour, the wind danced across open fields, carrying a faint hush that soothed both land and spirit. For generations, the folks of Cedar Ridge had led simple, honest lives, content to see the same neighbors, greet the same country lanes, and watch the same sunsets color the vast southwestern sky. But on that particular evening, something most unexpected was about to unfold. Ethan Carter, a man of steady hands and warm heart, had just closed his family's auto garage for the night. His father had once run the shop with old-fashioned pride, teaching Ethan the gentle art of mechanics and the power of honest labor. At 28, with sandy hair and soft brown eyes, Ethan thrived on taking apart engines and putting them back together, ensuring the cars and trucks of Cedar Ridge never failed their faithful owners. He lived a contented life, humble, measured, and devoted to his craft. But fate sometimes weaves a new thread into a life so ordinary. As Ethan locked up and turned to head home, a peculiar glimmer caught his eye, a soft, wavering blue glow shining in the distance beyond the old mesquite trees. It pulsed with a strange rhythm, unlike anything he had witnessed in all his years tinkering with headlights, tail lamps, and neon signs. That glow stirred a sudden pang of curiosity in his heart, compelling him to investigate. He felt it as a calling, an impossible summons in the quiet realm of farmland and dusty roads. He walked to his old pickup truck, hopped in, and turned the key. The engine hummed with dependable life. He set off down the winding country lane toward the unknown light. Each turn, each bump in the road made his pulse climb, for the glow was no mere reflection, nor was it the glint of a passing plane. It felt alive, mesmerizing, and, in an odd sense, beckoning. At length, he reached a small clearing bordered by tall grass that rustled like whispering ghosts beneath the gathering night. He stopped the truck, killed the engine, and stared at the sight before him. What looked to be some sort of translucent craft, small and disc-like, hovered a foot above the ground. Its surface reflected the last rays of sun like a polished mirror, while faint tendrils of light, in shifting shades of sapphire, rippled around its edges. Ethan held his breath, unsure whether to run or stay. This was beyond the realm of practical reason. Hesitation fluttered across his mind. Maybe he had dozed off, or perhaps this was some elaborate trick. Yet deep in his heart, he sensed the reality of what he beheld. It felt too immediate, too tangible, to be anything but truth. With trembling steps, he approached the craft, the gentle hum from its underside sending vibrations through the soles of his boots. Then, from behind the craft, or perhaps from within it, emerged a figure. Ethan froze, his heart pounding. Was it human, or was it something else? The shape was slender, humanoid, yet the figure's skin gleamed with a subtle glow, blue, iridescent, as though the night sky had been absorbed into her very being. The stranger was female, with limbs graceful and long, hair shining like spun silver, and eyes that held an otherworldly light. She looked at Ethan with a mixture of relief and worry, trembling as she struggled to stand upright. Ethan could barely breathe. He recalled stories of UFO sightings, of alien conspiracies whispered late at night, but he had always dismissed them as tall tales. Now, confronted by the undeniable presence of this radiant woman, he found his preconceived notions crumbling. At the sight of him, the woman faltered, as though unsure whether to approach or to flee. But desperation flashed across her expression, stirring Ethan's compassion. He raised a hand in a gesture of peace, clearing his throat to speak. "Ma'am, are you hurt?" She stared at him intently, as if weighing his words. When she spoke, her voice was gentle, resonant, layered with a soft echo. "Please," she said. "I need help. I am not from this place. It is dangerous for me to stay here, but I cannot leave without aid." It was enough for Ethan to set aside his shock. He stepped closer, noticing how her entire body seemed to glow from within. I don't understand," he began carefully. "But you look like you need somewhere safe. I can help." A small smile, tinged with gratitude, spread across her lips. "You are kind," she answered. "My name is Nova. I have come a long way, and I have very little time." Her voice trembled with urgency. "Will you give me shelter?" Something in her plea awakened Ethan's protective side. Without giving a second thought to the enormity of the situation, he nodded. "Yes, I will help you," he replied softly, though confusion still ran through his mind. "But we can't stay here. Let me take you somewhere you can hide." Nova cast one last glance at her craft, then touched a panel on its side. The shimmering disk dematerialized like a passing dream, dissolving into fragments of pulsating light that scattered over the grass and vanished. Ethan watched in awe, uncertain if his eyes were deceiving him. But Nova's anxious expression urged him to hurry, so he quickly led her to his truck. That was how their story began, a strange meeting in the twilight fields, marked by silent wonder and a surge of empathy. Neither of them guessed that this single act of kindness would spiral into a perilous chase across the vastness of Earth, entwining their destinies in ways neither had imagined. For soon, Nova's pursuers would arrive, bringing danger and secrets of cosmic proportions. They drove back toward Cedar Ridge, weaving down the old roads with the truck's headlights cutting through the darkness. Ethan glanced at Nova, noticing how she stared at the night sky with an almost pained longing. She sat curled in the passenger seat, trying to suppress the faint glow emanating from her skin. "I need to keep my energy low, or they will find me," she said softly, her voice tinged with fear. "Who will find you?" Ethan asked, perplexed by the entire situation. He had made a snap decision, take this strange being into his home, but worry now tugged at his mind. "Is someone after you?" Nova nodded, her silver hair cascading over her shoulders. "Kael," she whispered, the name bearing the weight of dread. "He is a tyrant, a conqueror, one who has ravaged many worlds. He seeks to harness the power of my people, to use us as living catalysts for his destructive ambitions. I am a fugitive, though my crime is merely the will to live free." Ethan let her words settle, glancing occasionally at the road. "And you came here? To Earth?" he asked, wondering how their unremarkable corner of Texas had become her refuge. She nodded. "Earth, yes, it was my best chance to hide. But I fear I may still be traced. My craft's jump system malfunctioned. I crashed, though I cloaked it as best I could." She studied him thoughtfully. "You are a good man. You did not run. You did not attack me. You offered help. I am grateful." Ethan's cheeks warmed. "Well, I'm not sure if it's bravery or plain foolishness," he admitted with a half-smile. "But it felt right to help someone in need." He paused, trying to reconcile the strangeness of it all. "I still can't believe any of this is real, or that you're sitting here in my truck." Nova's tense posture relaxed slightly, as if comforted by his sincerity. "I promise no harm will come to you because of me, if I can help it," she said gently, and for a moment their eyes met, forging an unspoken trust. They soon arrived at Ethan's home, a modest bungalow on the outskirts of town, where the land stretched quiet and open. He parked the truck in the driveway, then switched off the headlights. "I have a spare bedroom," he said, leading Nova inside. "It's not much, but you can rest here, and we'll figure out what to do in the morning." Stepping into the living room, Nova gazed around with a mixture of curiosity and relief. The cozy couches, the wooden coffee table, the photographs of Ethan's parents hanging on the walls, all seemed foreign to her. She gently ran her fingers along the fabric of the couch. "Warm," she murmured, inviting. A pang of sadness struck Ethan as he saw the wonder in her eyes. She was so far from home, alone and in hiding, yet her gentle manner radiated genuine kindness. "I'll fetch you a blanket," he said softly. "You must be exhausted." She gave him a grateful nod. "Thank you, Ethan Carter." Their first night under the same roof passed in quiet uncertainty. Ethan lay awake in his own bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering if come morning he would discover it was all a bizarre dream. Yet, listening for any sound from the guest room, he knew it was real. Outside, the Texas sky offered a canvas of stars, silent witnesses to the beginning of an extraordinary bond. At dawn, Ethan rose early, brewed a pot of coffee, and fried up some bacon and eggs. The savory aroma drifted through the house. As he set the table, Nova emerged from the guest room. She looked more human now, wearing clothes Ethan had lent her, one of his flannel shirts and a pair of old jeans. The garments were loose, but they concealed her glowing skin enough to pass at a glance. She had tied her silvery hair into a low ponytail, and only a faint shimmer remained on her face and hands. She approached the kitchen, drawn by the curious sizzle. "That smells marvelous," she said, though her accent tinted the words with an enchanting cadence. Ethan offered a tentative smile. "Bacon and eggs, a classic breakfast. Didn't know if you could stomach Earth food. But, well, here it is." Nova touched the plate with a mix of curiosity and delight, picking up a fork. Carefully, she took a bite, her alien senses processing the flavors. Her eyes went wide, and she ate another bite, a smile lighting her features. "This is delightful, so rich, so comforting," she declared, as though tasting the first fruit of a new world. "Thank you." They ate together, forging a fragile sense of normalcy. But underneath, the tension of Nova's circumstances weighed heavily. "We need a plan," Ethan said at last, setting his fork aside. "You said you're on the run. I want to help, but I need to know how." Nova swallowed a bite, then nodded gravely. "Kael has eyes across the galaxy. He likely has agents searching this planet as we speak. My hope was to remain hidden until I could contact my people, but my communicator was damaged in the crash. If I cannot repair it, I cannot warn them or request extraction." Ethan's mechanical mind kicked into gear. "Let me see this communicator," he said with a gentle determination. "Maybe we can fix it." Nova retrieved a small, oval device from her pocket, brushed silver, etched with glyphs that glowed faintly. Several cracks ran along its surface. "Be careful," she said, handing it to him. "The power source is volatile. It was never meant to endure a crash landing." He nodded, carefully turning it over in his hands. "I'll do my best," he said, "but I've never worked on alien tech before." She offered a shy smile. "Your instincts may suffice. My people's technology resonates with mechanical logic, if one has the patience to decipher it." They spent that day in Ethan's workshop out back, trying every approach to repair the damaged communicator. Nova explained pieces of her people's scientific knowledge, how certain crystals harnessed energy, how signals were transmitted across vast interstellar distances. Ethan's mechanical intuition met her alien ingenuity in a collaborative dance. Twice, the device sparked, sending out arcs of blue light, and they leapt back in alarm. A faint burn scorched Ethan's forearm the second time, but Nova quickly apologized, pressing her glowing palm against the wound. A soothing warmth rushed through him, healing it almost instantly, to his stunned amazement. Even as they labored, Ethan noticed Nova's brow creasing with worry. She glanced at the windows, at the sky, as though anticipating an attack. Eventually, as sunset approached, he set down his tools. "We've made some progress," he observed, holding up the communicator's reassembled shell. "But it's not ready to transmit any powerful signals yet. Another day or two of tinkering should get us closer." Nova breathed a soft sigh. "I hope we have that long," she murmured. "Kael's men are thorough, and if they come for me, they may harm others in the process." Ethan's resolve hardened. He would not see Cedar Ridge threatened. He placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "We'll find a way to keep you safe, Nova, I promise." She looked into his eyes, her own shimmering with gratitude. "Thank you," she said, and in that moment, their bond strengthened, like two companions forging an alliance under extraordinary circumstances. The next morning, events took an unexpected turn. Ethan had ventured into town to pick up some supplies, spare parts, wires, anything that might help repair the alien device. He wandered along Main Street, greeted by familiar faces. Nothing seemed amiss, until he noticed a sleek black sedan parked near the local diner. Two men in dark suits stood outside, scanning the passing townsfolk with unnerving intensity. Ethan slowed, an uneasy feeling churning in his gut. Cedar Ridge rarely saw men like that, official-looking and out of place. One of them caught sight of him, and the man's gaze flicked from Ethan's face to the items in his arms, electronic parts, small tools, then back again. That look, cold and appraising, twisted Ethan's stomach in knots. Could they be Kael's agents? He swallowed and walked into the hardware store without glancing back, heart pounding. Inside, Mr. Thompson greeted him cheerily, but Ethan responded only with a tight smile, mind racing. He picked up everything he needed in a flurry, paid, and exited through the rear door, hoping to avoid attention. Outside, behind the store, the narrow alley was empty. He hastened to his truck, but as he fumbled for his keys, The hairs on his neck stood on end. He spun around and found one of the suited men standing there, expressionless. "Ethan Carter," the stranger said, voice void of warmth. "We've been looking for you." Ethan forced calm into his voice. "Do I know you?" The man took a step closer. "We are with an investigative agency," he explained, though he did not provide any identification. "We have reason to believe you've recently come into contact with a dangerous fugitive. We ask that you comply with our questioning for your own safety." Ethan's heart thumped. They knew. They had somehow tracked Nova, or at least suspected someone had found her. He made a show of confusion. "Fugitive? I'm just a mechanic. No idea what you're talking about." The man's eyes, dark and piercing, remained fixed on Ethan. "We have reason to believe otherwise. Did you witness any unusual phenomena last night? Any aircraft or signs of disturbance?" Ethan put on his best clueless act, though his palms were sweating. "No, sir," he said. "I was home all evening. Quiet night." The stranger studied him a moment longer, the tension so thick one could hardly breathe. Then he stepped back, offering a thin-lipped smile. "If you recall anything, we suggest you contact us at once," he said, slipping a plain white card into Ethan's shirt pocket. "For your safety." Then he walked off, disappearing around the corner. Ethan stood there, adrenaline coursing through him. Those men, whoever they were definitely not from any standard law enforcement. He looked at the card. No name, no phone number, just an insignia of a red star-like shape inside a circle. Kael's men, or maybe some Earth-based Black Ops group. Either way, Nova was not safe. He scrambled into his truck and sped back home. When he arrived, he found Nova hidden in the workshop, fiddling with the communicator. He told her everything he had seen. Fear flashed in her eyes, but also a sort of grim determination. "We must flee," she said. "If they discover me, they will capture us both. It will not end well." Ethan exhaled. He had just begun to piece together a plan. Now it might already be crumbling. "They might search houses soon," he muttered. "We can't stay here much longer." Then an idea came to him. Desperate, a bit outlandish, but maybe workable. "Nova, if you were just a normal human woman, traveling with me for personal reasons, would they suspect you?" Her brows furrowed. "Uncertain," she replied. "I can mask my glow for a time, and perhaps pass as a pale woman, but only if I remain calm. My skin reveals emotions. When I am frightened or distressed, the shimmer intensifies. They would likely sense something off about me. However, there might be ways to distract them." Ethan recalled how, in Cedar Ridge, people tended to mind their own business, especially if they believed a couple was newly married or visiting family. Locals were neighborly, but often gave space to those who carried themselves with private matters. "You might hide in plain sight," he said, chewing on the idea. "If we pretend to be married, folks around here might not ask too many questions. And if any outsiders see us together, they may be thrown off by the mundane story." Nova blinked in surprise, a faint blush of aquamarine tinting her cheeks. "Married? That is quite the ruse. You would do this for me?" He nodded, though his heart fluttered at the idea. "I can't think of another way. If you disappear alone, you'll stick out, and those men might track you. But if you're with me, as my wife, traveling for family reasons or something, we might slip through the cracks for a while, long enough to fix the communicator or find another plan." She considered his words, then nodded slowly. "Agreed, though it is quite the subterfuge. I do not wish to place you in further danger." He smiled, though worry still lined his face. "We're already in it. Together," he said gently. "But let's do this carefully. We'll gather a few belongings, leave town before it's crawling with agents, and come up with our next step on the road." Nova's alien features softened, as though touched by his unwavering kindness. "Thank you," she said. "I will follow your lead." That night, under the cloak of darkness, they packed Ethan's pickup with essentials, tools, clothes, some food, and water. Nova kept the communicator close, continuing to tinker when they stopped for breaks. Ethan left a note on the garage door, claiming a family emergency required him to leave town. By dawn, they were gone, driving away from Cedar Ridge, uncertain where the road might lead. During their hurried flight, they maintained the guise of newlyweds on a road trip. Nova wore a wide-brimmed hat to keep the sunlight off her face, which helped conceal her faint shimmer during the day. Ethan did his best to coach her through small talk, mannerisms, and the typical casual intimacy a couple might display, holding hands, exchanging smiles, leaning in close. It embarrassed them both at first, but the fear of discovery pushed them to perfect the act. They passed through neighboring towns, stopping only for fuel or snacks. They spoke little, for each was lost in their own thoughts. But, gradually, the weight of tension eased, replaced by a shared determination. Nova's presence intrigued Ethan. She was so gentle, yet a burning spirit of defiance glowed beneath her calm exterior. Meanwhile, Nova found comfort in Ethan's steadfast nature, which reminded her of the guardians of her home world, loyal protectors bound by a code of honor. Late one afternoon, they pulled into a dusty roadside motel off the highway. The neon sign flickered, promising a decent night's rest. They checked in under the name Mr. and Mrs. Carter, hearts pounding as the clerk politely handed over a key. Inside the small motel room, with its faded wallpaper and a single bed, they breathed a collective sigh of relief. "We should rest," Ethan murmured, setting down their bags. "It's been a long day." Nova nodded, but her eyes shone with concern. "Yes, let us," she whispered, "though I fear the nightmares that await." Ethan rubbed his temples, feeling the strain of constant vigilance. "I'll keep watch for a while," he offered gently. "You can sleep first." But Nova, with her otherworldly healing abilities, insisted Ethan rest. She had energy enough to keep her glow subdued and remain alert. Reluctantly, he agreed, stretching out on the bed. He drifted off, lulled by the hum of the air conditioner. At some point in the night, he awoke to find Nova staring out the window, shoulders tense. Silvery moonlight fell across her, making her look like a pale statue. "Is everything okay?" he asked groggily. She turned, her face etched with sorrow. "I feel them," she murmured, pressing a hand to her heart. "I sensed the darkness of Kael's presence drawing closer. Not close enough to pinpoint, but near enough to stir my fears. The communicator remains incomplete, and my power to reach my people is limited." Ethan rose, walked over to her. In that hush of moonlit hours, he placed a reassuring hand upon her shoulder. "You're not alone," he said quietly. "We'll figure out a way to stop him." Her eyes flickered with both sadness and hope. "If we fail," she whispered, "my entire race remains enslaved to his tyranny. I cannot let that be." He squeezed her shoulder gently. They stood in silence, just the two of them, while the moon bore witness to their unspoken vow. They would not succumb to despair, though the odds were stacked against them. A few days later, they found themselves deeper into the southwestern deserts, the sky an endless expanse of azure by day, with nights cold and sparkling. They made camp on a rocky outcropping overlooking a sweeping canyon. Nova had insisted on teaching Ethan basic self-defense, using the same techniques her people employed, albeit adapted for human physiology. They practiced at twilight, their shadows stretching across the sand, as Nova showed him how to center his energy, sense an opponent's intentions, and redirect force. It was a strange, meditative process, far removed from Earth's martial traditions. Yet Ethan found it invigorating, a chance to strengthen himself, for he knew soon they might need every advantage to stand against Kael's men. The air crackled with intangible electricity whenever Nova channeled her power. Her presence stirred the dust motes, creating swirling patterns that glimmered faintly in the fading light. Ethan's heart pounded, not only from the exertion, but from the realization that a bond far stronger than pretense was forming between them. Their fleeting glances, the comforting warmth of her hand on his arm during practice, the way she now laughed softly at his jokes. These were the moments that made danger recede, if only for a breath. After one particularly intense session, Ethan collapsed onto a flat rock, panting. Nova knelt beside him, her gaze kind but firm. "You are learning quickly," she said with a hint of admiration. He chuckled breathlessly. "I'm trying, but I'm only human. We don't all glow and float around." She smiled, a genuine one that lit her face. "It is not your species that intrigues me. It is your compassion. I have encountered many who claim to be strong, but they lack the resolve that comes from kindness." He sat up, meeting her luminous gaze. A moment hung there, delicate as a single raindrop in the desert. Then he shifted awkwardly, picking up a bottle of water to drink. "Well, I figure the world could use more good guys." Nova touched his hand, her voice earnest. "Yes, and I am most fortunate to have found one." Her words sent a gentle warmth through him, a tenderness that made his heart ache. He swallowed, unsure of how to respond. But the bond between them, though unspoken, grew stronger with each passing day. Meanwhile, the men in dark suits, Kael's agents, continued their hunt. They prowled the highways, combed through local towns, questioned passers-by. Their vessel in low Earth orbit scanned relentlessly for Nova's energy signature. She was adept at hiding it, employing subtle mental shields taught to her in younger days, but she could sense their net tightening. Finally, one evening, as Ethan and Nova approached a small desert outpost, they spotted an unmarked helicopter swooping low over the highway. It landed near the only gas station for miles. Alarm bells clanged in Ethan's head. "We can't stop here," he muttered, stepping harder on the accelerator. But they needed gas. The fuel gauge teetered on empty. With no other station in range, they had no choice. So they pulled in, hearts pounding. A single pump stood next to a decrepit store. The helicopter sat on a dusty patch, while 3 men in black suits conferred near it, scanning each vehicle that approached. Ethan shot Nova a sidelong glance. "Let me handle this." "Stay calm." She pulled the brim of her hat lower, nodding. Her glow was almost non-existent, but stress threatened to betray her. He parked next to the pump. As he began to fill the tank, one of the suited men approached, his sunglasses reflecting Ethan's nervous face. "Evening, sir," the agent said coolly. "We're searching for a missing woman. Have you seen anyone traveling alone or acting strangely?" Ethan worked to keep his voice steady. "No, can't say I have. I'm traveling with my wife. We're on a kind of road trip." "Everything okay?" The agent leaned forward, peering into the truck's cab. Nova offered a shy smile, lifting her left hand conspicuously. A cheap ring Ethan had purchased served as their wedding band prop. "Hello," she said softly. The man studied her, face impassive. "Ma'am," he acknowledged with a curt nod. "We're looking for a woman who may appear ill or have unusual features. If you see anything, report it immediately." Ethan forced a friendly tone. "Of course, we'll do that." The agent lingered another second, as though sniffing for deception, then finally stepped away. Ethan finished pumping gas, paid inside, and returned to the truck. They drove off, hearts pounding in unison. That had been too close. Nova exhaled shakily. "They are everywhere," she breathed. "We must be more vigilant." Ethan nodded, hands tight on the wheel. "We'll stick to back roads. And we'll keep working on that communicator until it's functional." Their journey stretched into weeks, forging a tapestry of tense encounters, narrow escapes, and precious moments of respite under wide desert skies. Each day brought them closer to finishing the communicator, and yet each day, Kael's net seemed to close a fraction tighter around them. They heard rumors on the radio, bizarre government sweeps, unexplained sightings in night skies, towns locked down for security reasons. The presence of something big, something unstoppable, loomed. During one late-night drive, Nova managed to coax the communicator to life for a brief moment. A flash of blue sparks illuminated the truck's interior, and a faint hum of cosmic static filled the air. She attempted to send a signal to her people, but the device hissed and died again. In her exhaustion, tears welled up. "I was so close," she murmured, voice quaking. "Just one more piece, if we had the right crystal or power cell." Ethan offered a gentle touch on her shoulder. "We'll find it," he said, though he was uncertain how. Nonetheless, he could not stand to see her lose hope. The next morning, in a small, hidden canyon, Nova and Ethan sat by a crackling campfire. Dawn light painted the red rocks in golden streaks. With a determined expression, Nova handed Ethan the communicator once more, pointing to the power conduit. "This crystal is nearly depleted," she explained. "We must find a high-energy alternative to sustain the long-range frequency. Kael's technology often uses a particular mineral found in deep space, but Earth may have an equivalent." Ethan furrowed his brow. "What about meteorites or something like that?" he asked. "We hear stories of meteor fragments containing exotic metals." Nova's eyes glowed with sudden hope. "Yes, that may serve, if we can find one with enough energetic properties." Ethan stoked the fire thoughtfully. "There's an old scientist I know, Dr. Greenwood, who moved out to the desert years ago to study celestial objects. He collects meteor fragments. If anyone around here has what we need, it's probably him." I met him once when he came through Cedar Ridge to fix his truck. He's an odd fellow, but brilliant. Nova perked up. Then we must find him. And so they set off once again, tracking down leads on Dr. Greenwood's remote laboratory. After 2 days of dusty roads and cryptic directions from desert locals, they found a squat building tucked into the craggy foothills. Solar panels lined the roof, and a massive satellite dish stood guard outside. Ethan parked, stepping out cautiously. Nova followed, pulling her hat low. They approached a steel door, pounded on it, and waited. At length, it creaked open, revealing a gaunt man in his 60s, with wild gray hair and keen blue eyes. His wrinkled face broke into a half-smile. "Well, I'll be damned. Ethan Carter, is that you?" Ethan grinned, relieved at the familiar greeting. "Dr. Greenwood, it's been a while. Sorry to barge in, but we need help with something important." The scientist raised an eyebrow, looking at Nova with curiosity. "Ah, and who is this radiant companion?" "Nova Carter, my wife." Ethan lied smoothly, though a flicker of guilt pricked his conscience. "She's helping me with a special project." Greenwood's eyes sparkled with mischief. "A wife? Well, I never thought I'd see the day. Come inside. Come, let's not melt in this heat." They entered a cluttered lab filled with contraptions, half-assembled telescopes, and cabinets overflowing with labeled rocks. Greenwood offered them water, then sat down. "What brings you here? And don't sugarcoat it. I may be old, but I've still got a scientist's mind." Ethan and Nova exchanged glances. They had not intended to reveal the full truth, but they needed his help. So, with hesitations, Nova removed her hat, letting her faint glow become visible. Greenwood's eyes widened, but his shock soon shifted to fascination. She spoke softly. "I am not from this world, Dr. Greenwood. I come from beyond the stars. Your friend, Ethan, has given me refuge, but I must complete a device to warn my people of grave danger. We require a certain energy source, something akin to a meteorite or cosmic crystal." The scientist blinked in awe, adjusting his glasses. "Well, he murmured. "I always suspected we weren't alone, but to have living proof standing in my lab." His wrinkled face broke into a grin. "Incredible." Ethan saw the flicker of genuine wonder on Greenwood's face. "I'm sorry to spring this on you, Doc, but we're running out of time. We need a meteor fragment that might supply enough energy for her communicator." Greenwood stood, rummaging through stacks of labeled drawers. "I do have a stash of rare meteorites. Been collecting them for years. Let's see if any suit your needs." He began pulling out trays, each holding rocks of various colors and metallic sheens. Nova closed her eyes, passing her hand above each specimen. She seemed to sense the subtle frequencies, discarding one after another with a shake of her head. Finally, she paused over a jagged piece with swirling silver veins. She opened her eyes. "This one," she said with certainty. "It resonates with the correct frequency." Greenwood handed it to her, excitement dancing in his gaze. "Take it, by all means. I'd give anything to help an alien visitor, especially one in need." Nova offered him a radiant smile. "I shall not forget your kindness, Dr. Greenwood." "Thank you." The scientist shrugged with humility. "All in the name of science, my dear. Though, I would love to learn more about your technology, your biology even. Perhaps, once you're safe, we might share knowledge." She inclined her head politely. "It would be an honor, someday." With the meteor fragment in hand, Ethan and Nova quickly made adjustments to the communicator. Under Greenwood's watchful eye, they fused the piece into the device's power core. A low hum filled the lab as glowing lines spread across the casing, indicating rising energy levels. Nova's breath caught. "It's working," she whispered, tears brimming in her luminous eyes. She pressed a series of glyphs, and a swirling blue projection hovered above the communicator, an intricate, three-dimensional array of star charts. "I can attempt to send a distress call now," she said, voice quivering with hope. Greenwood's eyes shone. "Remarkable," he murmured, stepping back so she could focus. Nova closed her eyes, channeling her mental focus into the device. A soft radiance enveloped her, intensifying at her fingertips. Ethan and Greenwood watched in astonishment. "This is it," Ethan whispered. "We might finally have a way to fight back." But the moment was shattered by a sudden crash at the door. Booted footsteps thundered through the entry, and before anyone could react, A swarm of black-suited men poured into the lab, weapons drawn. Kael's agents. They must have tracked them here. Adrenaline surged in Ethan. Nova, keep transmitting, he shouted, stepping forward to confront the intruders. A tall man with cold eyes raised a menacing device, aiming it at Nova. A crackling bolt of purple energy streaked from it, but Ethan leapt in front, taking the hit to his shoulder. Agony burst through him, and he staggered back, groaning, as sparks danced across his body. Nova cried out, "Ethan!" She sprang to his side, her hands glowing as she tried to heal the wound. But more agents closed in, knocking the communicator from her grasp. Greenwood rushed to retrieve it, but two men pinned him against a lab bench. "Enough!" snarled the tall man. "Surrender now, or your earthling companions will die." Ethan, still reeling from pain, glared defiantly. "Stay away from her, you bast." The man struck him with the butt of the device, sending him sprawling. Nova, anger ignited, rose with her eyes blazing. Her skin glowed a brilliant cerulean, pulses of alien power rippling around her. The men faltered for a heartbeat at the display, but the leader barked an order, and two of them fired strange rifles. Bolts of energy hissed through the air. Nova raised her hand, a shimmering barrier forming, deflecting the projectiles in bright bursts. Chaos raged in the cramped lab, equipment toppling as the fight escalated. Greenwood shouted something unintelligible, throwing a beaker at one agent to distract him. The communicator lay on the floor, half buried under debris. Ethan struggled up, ignoring the stinging burn in his shoulder, searching for a way to help Nova. With a burst of adrenaline, he tackled the nearest agent from behind, grappling to disarm him. The man twisted, landing a punch to Ethan's jaw, but Ethan clung on desperately. Another agent trained his weapon on Ethan, ready to fire. Nova, seeing the danger, let out a piercing cry, releasing a surge of energy that sent the second attacker crashing against the wall. "Grab the communicator," she shouted, voice resonating with power. Greenwood, freed momentarily, scooped it up and tossed it to Nova. She caught it, pressing the activation glyph, but the swirling energy flickered. Another agent lunged, slashing at her with a blade crackling with purple arcs. Nova parried with a glowing forearm, sparks raining around them. Desperate to protect Ethan and Greenwood, Nova unleashed another wave of force, scattering the agents. But the tall leader had recovered, leveling his weapon at her back. Ethan saw the danger, heart pounding. Summoning the last of his strength, he hurled himself into the path of the blast, crying out as a searing jolt coursed through him. Nova whirled around. A guttural sound of anguish tore from her throat, seeing Ethan's body slump to the floor. Something snapped within her. A blazing aura expanded, bright enough to blind the men, and she advanced on the leader, eyes aflame. He tried to fire again, but the energy dissipated, as though swallowed by her fury. She thrust her palms forward, and an explosion of light hurled him across the lab. He slammed into a cabinet, collapsing in a heap. In the stillness that followed, the other agents either lay unconscious or fled. Nova rushed to Ethan, cradling him in her arms, her hands trembling. "Ethan," she whispered, tears streaming from her shining eyes, "stay with me." Her healing energies glowed, but the wound was deep. He coughed, blood staining his lips. Greenwood staggered over, horrified. "My God, is he?" Nova shook her head fiercely. "No, I can save him, I must." She pressed glowing hands to Ethan's chest, channeling every ounce of her life force into repairing the damage. Her breath shuddered, her complexion fading as she poured her energy out. Slowly, Ethan's labored breathing steadied, his eyes flickering open. Relief flooded Nova, but she was left weakened, collapsing beside him. He caught her, voice raspy. "Nova, you saved me." She brushed a tear from his cheek. "You saved me, again and again," she whispered. "How could I do less?" Greenwood hastened to help them both up, retrieving bandages and water. "We need to get out of here," he warned, stepping over unconscious men. "More will come." Nova nodded, eyes heavy with fatigue, but determination etched her face. She lifted the communicator, now glowing steadily. She sent out one final sequence of pulses, her voice resonating through it. "This is Nova, calling my people. We are under attack. Kael is near. I request immediate reinforcement." A silence. Then the communicator projected a small, flickering hologram of another being, whose skin glowed in a hue similar to Nova's. The alien's voice crackled. "Nova, we receive you. Coordinates locked. Reinforcements will arrive shortly. Hold on, sister." A sob of gratitude escaped Nova. Ethan, leaning on her for support, managed a weak smile. "We did it," he murmured. Greenwood glanced at the battered lab. "Yes, but you'd best not be here when Kael's next wave arrives." Nova faced the old scientist, eyes glistening. "Come with us," she urged. "Your life is in danger now." He hesitated, gazing around at his life's work. "It wouldn't be the first time," he mused. "But no, I'll stay. I have ways to hide, and maybe more discoveries to make. Besides, I suspect your rescue might mean leaving Earth entirely." Nova nodded solemnly. "It might." Greenwood gave her a gentle, fatherly smile. "Then go. Save your people. And if you ever return, I'll have more questions for you than you can imagine." A tearful laugh escaped Nova. She clasped his hands in gratitude. "Farewell, Dr. Greenwood. Thank you for everything." With that, she and Ethan stumbled out of the lab, leaving behind a scene of shattered glass, scattered equipment, and unconscious men. They loaded into the pickup and drove away under the burning midday sun. The communicator sat on the dashboard, pulsing a hopeful beat like a distant heartbeat among the stars. Word soon reached Kael himself that Nova's signal had gone out. Enraged, he descended upon Earth with a personal warship, intent on capturing her before reinforcements arrived. A menacing vessel, black as obsidian, hovered in low orbit, hidden from earthly eyes by advanced cloaking. Inside, Kael seethed, a tall, intimidating figure with silver hair bound in braids, his dark eyes glowing with a malignant fervor. He wore ornate armor inscribed with symbols of conquest, trophies from countless subjugated worlds. "She must not escape," he spat. "Increase scans. Deploy all ground forces." Within hours, black-suited squads poured through the desert, tracking the truck's movements. Ethan and Nova realized they could not outrun them indefinitely. They took shelter in a canyon pass, the pickup battered from rough terrain. Nova's strength was replenishing slowly, but the strain of healing Ethan left her too weak for major feats of power. They huddled together beneath a rocky overhang, uncertain if rescue would come in time. "We can't let Kael corner us," Ethan muttered, wincing as he adjusted his injured shoulder. "We need a place we can defend until your people arrive." Nova studied the canyon, eyes narrowed. "Up there." She pointed to a narrow ledge leading deeper into a labyrinth of stone. "We could force them into a bottleneck. It might buy us time." Together, they climbed, each supporting the other. The canyon walls towered overhead, forming a natural fortress. The echoes of distant vehicles and the whir of drones filled the hot air. Kael's men were closing in. At dusk, the stars emerged one by one in the purpling sky. Nova set the communicator on a ledge, verifying that her people were still homing in on her signal. The time for confrontation had come. Ethan checked his makeshift weapons, a length of steel pipe, a hunting knife, a borrowed sidearm from Greenwood's stash. It was hardly a fair fight against advanced alien weaponry, but desperation fueled him. They did not wait long. Lights flared below, voices shouting in a foreign tongue. Agents climbed the rocks, flashlights dancing across the canyon walls. Among them stood Kael himself, imposing and calm, as though certain of victory. He looked up, spotting the faint glow of Nova's presence. A cruel smile twisted his lips. "Nova," he called, voice resonant, carrying in the still air. "Why prolong the inevitable? Come down. Submit to me, and I may spare your companion's life." Ethan spat. "Don't listen to him, Nova. He's lying." Kael's mocking laughter echoed. "How touching. This devotion to a human," he sneered. "You think your feeble bond can save you? I have destroyed civilizations for less." Nova stepped forward onto a ledge, her posture steady despite her fatigue. Her gaze locked on Kael. "You have ruined enough lives," she declared, voice echoing power. "I will see my people free from your tyranny." Kael's eyes narrowed. "Foolish child," he growled. "Open fire." His men unleashed a hail of energy blasts. Ethan and Nova ducked behind boulders, returning fire whenever they could. Sparks illuminated the twilight, the air thick with dust and danger. Nova raised a glowing barrier, blocking many of the shots, but each impact weakened her further. Ethan fought with grim resolve, shielding Nova from harm, determined not to let Kael's cruelty triumph. Minutes ticked by like hours. The canyon was filled with the roar of battle. Then, in a moment of horrifying clarity, the sky above them rippled, revealing the outline of Kael's warship descending. Its underside glowed menacingly, charging some catastrophic weapon. Kael, standing on a rock below, lifted his arms, chanting words in an alien language. "This world will learn to fear me," he intoned. Ethan realized that if that warship fired upon them, it might reduce the canyon, and them, to molten rubble. "Nova," he shouted over the din. "Can your people get here before that thing fires?" She shook her head, sweat beading on her forehead. I don't know." Suddenly, the communicator chirped with life. A swarm of bright lights appeared on the horizon, small, fast-moving craft descending through Earth's atmosphere. Nova's reinforcements. Their arrival glimmered in the evening sky like a meteor shower. She gasped in relief. "They are here." Kael noticed, turning his gaze skyward. His snarl turned savage. "No matter," he spat. "I will finish this quickly." He raised a device, pressing a sequence of runes. The warship's underside brightened, energy coalescing into a colossal sphere. If unleashed, it might obliterate half the canyon. Nova mustered her remaining strength, preparing one final shield, though she knew it might not be enough to save them. But then, the cavalry arrived. Nova's people, piloting sleek silver craft, streaked overhead. Beams of brilliant sapphire lashed out, striking Kael's warship. The sphere of energy flickered, destabilizing. Explosions racked the massive vessel's hull, sending it listing to one side. Kael roared in fury, his plans unraveling. Ethan and Nova watched in awe. Dozens of alien fighters swooped down, exchanging rapid fire with Kael's warship. On the ground, more of Nova's kin teleported in bright bursts, engaging Kael's stunned agents. Freed from the brunt of incoming fire, Ethan and Nova scrambled down the rocks, heading straight for Kael. The tyrant faced them, eyes burning with hatred. "I will not be denied," he hissed. Summoning his own power, he launched a crackling projectile at them. Nova countered with a final surge of energy, deflecting the projectile into the canyon wall. Debris tumbled down, forcing Ethan and Nova to leap aside. Ethan recovered first, lunging with his makeshift pipe. Kael snarled, backhanding Ethan to the ground with inhuman strength. Pain flared, but Ethan held onto the pipe, scrambling upright again. Nova unleashed a barrage of luminous blasts, staggering Kael. She advanced, eyes fierce. "Your reign ends now," she declared. But Kael was cunning. He pretended to stumble, then pivoted swiftly, seizing Nova's wrist. With a cruel sneer, he drained energy from her, siphoning her glow into himself. Nova cried out, collapsing to her knees. Her radiance dimmed, while Kael's aura flared with stolen power. "You are nothing," he spat. Desperation fueled Ethan's next move. He dashed forward, ignoring his injuries, and drove the pipe into Kael's side. The tyrant howled, releasing Nova. But with stolen energy swirling in his veins, Kael turned on Ethan, prepared to deliver a killing blow. Suddenly, blazing beams from above rained down. Nova's people had pinned Kael in their sights. "Move," a telepathic voice urged. Ethan pulled Nova away just as a concentrated strike of dazzling force lanced down, enveloping Kael in a cyclone of shimmering light. He shrieked, voice cracking the desert night, then vanished, swallowed by the furious radiance. In the aftermath, dust settled, the warship overhead listing precariously as it was driven away by relentless attacks from Nova's reinforcements. Kael's surviving agents threw down their weapons, surrendering to the shining warriors who materialized around them. At long last, the battle was won. Nova collapsed, exhausted, her skin ashen. Ethan cradled her, heart pounding. One of her people, a regal figure with robes of soft luminescence, knelt beside them. He placed a hand on Nova's brow, flooding her with healing energy. She gasped as her color returned, her eyes fluttering open. Ethan exhaled in relief, helping her sit upright. "Are you all right?" he asked hoarsely. She gazed at him, lips trembling, tears slipping down her cheeks. "Yes, because of you," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. The regal figure, one of Nova's elders, judging by the subtle markings on his forehead, addressed her gently. We have disabled Kael's forces, though the tyrant himself may yet live, lost in the dimensional rift we created. His threat is ended for now. Come, Nova, you must return home with us, heal, and help rebuild. Nova nodded slowly, turning to Ethan, a pang of sadness in her eyes. I must go, she murmured. My people need me. Ethan's heart clenched. He had known this moment would come, that she belonged to the stars. But the realization still cut deep. He managed a nod, forcing a smile. Of course, he said. I'm so happy you'll be safe. She took his hand, her touch electric against his skin. You have saved my life, given me hope, and sheltered me when I was lost, she said, voice trembling. I never expected to feel such a connection with someone from another world. You have my eternal gratitude, Ethan Carter. Hot tears stung Ethan's eyes. He tried to speak, but emotion silenced him. All he could do was squeeze her hand. The elder placed a comforting hand on Nova's shoulder. Our ship is ready. Come. Nova stood, swaying slightly. Then, with a sudden rush of determination, she turned back to Ethan, eyes fierce with longing. She stepped close, placing a gentle kiss on his lips, soft, lingering, and filled with every unspoken feeling. His heart hammered. For a moment, the desert, the aliens, the cosmic battle, all dissolved into that tender touch. When they broke apart, Nova's cheeks glimmered with tears. I will never forget you, she vowed, voice catching. He swallowed hard. Nor I you, he whispered, brushing her cheek with calloused fingertips. Be safe out there. She nodded, stepping back to join her people. They gathered around her, and in a blaze of shimmering energy, they all vanished, leaving Ethan alone in the quiet canyon. Overhead, the last of the alien fighters soared into the night sky, soon disappearing among the stars. Silence fell, broken only by the whisper of the wind through the rocks. For a long time, Ethan stood there, gazing at the vast expanse above. His heart felt both heavier and lighter than ever before. Heavier from the parting, lighter from the knowledge that Nova was free, her people rescued from tyranny. At last, he made his way back to the truck, battered and scorched, but still intact. He slumped into the driver's seat, every muscle aching, and stared at the horizon. Though sorrow lingered in his chest, he could not help but feel a subtle peace. They had won. They had defied an interstellar tyrant and sent him packing. Cedar Ridge, Earth, and Nova's people were safe. In time, the world might learn of their brush with cosmic invasion, or perhaps it would remain just another strange rumor. Ethan sighed. Life would never be the same, but he wouldn't trade his memories for anything. He started the engine. Dawn's first rays crept over the hills, staining the desert with gentle oranges and pinks. The swirling dust settled, leaving behind promise instead of fear. Ethan drove out of the canyon, back toward Cedar Ridge, back to the place he called home. Epilogue, happy ending. Months passed. Cedar Ridge recovered from the strange events, many of which never made headlines. Some locals reported odd lights in the sky, and rumors of black-suited agents sniffed around for a while, but soon disappeared. The old Carter garage reopened under Ethan's name. Friends welcomed him back with hardly any questions. Texans knew how to respect a man's privacy. Yet there was a new light in Ethan's eyes, a quiet confidence that came from tangling with forces beyond imagination and surviving. He worked day in and day out, fixing vehicles, greeting neighbors, enjoying the simple rhythms of small-town life. Sometimes, at sunset, he'd stand outside the garage, gazing at the sky, remembering a glowing woman who sought his help, who tasted bacon and eggs for the first time, who healed him with hands of starlight, and taught him to love beyond boundaries. One evening, as he closed up, a familiar shimmer caught his eye. It glowed faintly in the alley behind the garage. Heart pounding, he hurried over, hope surging in his chest. And there, emerging from a soft blue portal, stood Nova. Her hair, still silvery, caught the fading sunlight, and her skin bore that gentle radiance he could never forget. She raised a tentative hand. Hello, Ethan Carter, she murmured, voice shaky with emotion. He stood rooted to the spot, unable to believe his eyes. Nova, he whispered. She offered a tremulous smile, stepping forward. My people are rebuilding, free from Kael's reign, she said. But I could not stay away. I had to see you again. Her breath caught. If if you'll have me. Tears pricked the corners of Ethan's eyes. Without hesitation, he closed the distance and drew her into a fierce embrace. She melted into his arms, exhaling a shuddering breath. He kissed her forehead, then her lips, the taste of salty tears mingling with an unspoken joy. At that moment, under the vast sky, time ceased to matter. They had come full circle, from strangers to allies, from fugitives to victors, from worlds apart to souls entwined by fate. And so it was that an alien woman and a human man stood together in the twilight of Cedar Ridge, forging a new chapter of their story. Their bond, once a ruse born of necessity, had become something real and profound, tested by cosmic trials, sealed by gentle compassion. As the final rays of sun slipped below the horizon, they walked back to the garage, hand in hand, ready to face whatever future awaited them, together, in hope and love. It was, indeed, a happy ending, though truly just the beginning of another grand adventure. The stars above blinked in silent approval, and somewhere, on a distant world, others listened for the echo of Nova's laugh and the sound of Ethan's unwavering heartbeat, a testament that across the cosmos, there are ties stronger than tyranny, shining as brightly as any star in the endless night.